BenFlyingRetro, and I'm embarking on a quest to purchase every classic GI Joe comic from the original 80s and 90s Marvel run.
Warning.
Hunting down individual issues from every corner of the globe in whatever order the universe decides to give me. Join me and my pal Steve every week as we discuss my latest find. Welcome to Chasing Joe. Chasing Joe. Yes! You've made it back. It's episode 9 of Chasing Joe. I'm chasing Joe. I'm chasing a comic. I'm chasing it here. I'm chasing it there. Everywhere. I'm BenFlyingRetro. You're in the right place. I'm joined with my good pal
S-Jobs.
Yes. Look, a little tattoo check. I'm healing up quite nicely. Oof. I've got a Ghostbusters one here, and it's colour, so that's taking its time. Maybe I'll put them on the socials. But yeah.
Did you go back for the Ghostbusters?
But look at this. Plenty of real estate on the other side.
Not real estate that you'll be able to see.
Yeah.
For our benefit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, how are we
or
doing?
Whoever you're giving an uppercut to. Are you good?
Tiger. Uppercut. Tiger. Yeah, I was a Sagat man. I mean, I wasn't, but you couldn't play Sagat until Champion Edition. But look, the postman, he keeps coming. Last week was a lovely donation. Sadly, it can't be like that every week, S-Jub. Now, this has come all the way from the US of A, and it was an Etsy purchase. I wasn't buying arts and crafts. I wasn't buying, I don't know, a cushion. I was on there looking for comic books.
And comic books you found.
That's for sure.
Nice. In
this show, we don't mess around. We just get it and we rip it and we go. I mean, these books have been on a journey. This has come all the way from the US. I mean, all of them have come from the US, I guess, technically.
Hang in there, man. Maybe we'll encounter some books that saw print offshore.
Okay, geez, this has been... Oh my goodness. The heck? Okay, well, that's not a comic.
Sandwiched between two cardboards.
What have we got? We have got ourselves issue 10. Came out in January 1983 with an April cover date slapped on its gizzards. Now, we are back at the time of S-Jubs. Guess the price in sterling, S-Jubs. Guess it in sterling.
Then you've had to convert back, but I suppose this is on your account.
No, I haven't had to do any conversion because it just does it for you. But yeah.
Yeah. So what the money that came off your account, I'll say an issue 10 would probably cost you £12.
I think it should have cost me £12. It did not. It cost me £5. An unbelievable bargain at £5. Now that brings the running total at episode 9 up to £69 and 44 pence, $90. So I guess $90 for 9 books. Seems all right.
See, man, the deals be there.
Yeah, 2 donations, 9 books. Ooh, let's do a smell test.
Let's do it.
Sorry, what year did I say this was? 83. 1983. I was 2. Oh, actually, wait a minute. I couldn't really get much there. Let me just do the flop. Oh, I think that's how you really smell a comic book.
You recline and place it over your face like a sun visor.
Kirby, have a whiff. It smells like burnt sticks. Like burnt sticks. Hey, do you know what? It's bonfire night, so maybe that's why. Do you do that in Australia?
I don't know. I'm not Australian.
Guy
We did
Fawkes.
when I was a
It's British
child in
thing.
South
Of course
Africa.
it is. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Guy tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament. We all love him now. Strange. Now,
Great days.
S-Jubs, this cover, I mean, it almost feels like one of those flyers you'd get inviting you to buy a home in like an idyllic town. Like my parents, they lived in London and they did get a flyer through their door and they moved down to the south coast and it was a town that was being built like Springfield. That was a thing that happened. They were selling...
I'm blank on the name, but
they were
Back
selling
to the Future,
dreams.
you saw it recently.
Yeah.
Welcome to... What was the billboard say?
What, are you talking about the street that he's living in or Hilldale?
When they go back to 1955, it's being built, but
Hill Valley.
Where... Hill Valley, there we go. That's sort of development.
I forget that Hill Valley and then his actual street. I forget that. But
they parked a DeLorean behind a sign advertising.
Yeah, for sure. There's just something, I don't know, like 1960s. The way that Scarlett is smiling.
Yeah, her
smiling
her
at
grin.
like almost at a camera.
Mm.
It's a really interesting cover. I like it.
It's very metatextual. It's very like mugging for the camera. Like
Yeah.
Snake Eyes does look all business, and of course the Cobra Goons are all business. But Scarlett is that element of like, welcome to scenic Springfield.
Yeah, come start a family. Do it. What's this? Oh, it's just a crossbow.
Nice little town.
Now,
perfect Simpsons house in the background.
Do you remember a couple of weeks ago we did Tanks for the Memories, and we were talking
back in that era, man.
We were talking about the Cobra Troopers with their gold sort of accents, but this time we're dealing with, they've got the Cobra insignia, they've got AKs.
Yeah, it's not nondescript like sci-fi guns that comic artists of the era just kind of put in the hands of Goon of the Week. This is a more signature Cobra Trooper. They've got the symbols, and they're hand-drawn, so they're really, like, weird.
Yeah, the one on the right has got sort of regular eyes, and the dude leaning up against the sort of house, I don't know what's going on.
One is not meant to scrutinize this art as closely as we are.
Yeah.
He's looking weird.
So, I mean, he's leaning on just a paper house.
Facade.
There. Yeah.
Yeah.
Complete facade. But that building in the background, that looks fully formed.
It's operating on a lot of different levels, and it's a classic cover for it, I'd say.
Oh my God. I think I just like this cover even more just in the moment. I really, really like this cover. It's really unusual. And it feels like, early 80s. It feels old in my hand. And there's a lot going on here. I think if you were
cover
walking
tells a
past
story
this,
that the issue does not.
Yeah, exactly. If you were walking past this and you saw it on the rack, I'd be like, oh, what's that? And it said, well, it's a GI Joe book, but I don't know, it looks like something else. It looks like Good Housekeeping magazine. Or something, I don't know. Very interesting.
Well, you can't ignore the Cobra Troopers in the foreground.
That's true, but for some reason, I'm drawn to the other stuff first, and then it's like, who are these mothers? That that idyllic blue sky. Look at that blue sky. It's just like, everything's perfect over there, isn't it?
I love the story that this is portraying, and that's a classic trope of like duping the good guys, making them like lulling them, making them feel like they're in a safe place, making them believe the facade, the veneer. The issue isn't that. They're abducted, they're brought into this town, they're on the kind of the bad side all the time. But I'm thinking of the first time Springfield happens in the cartoon series, where it's Shipwreck, who is abducted by Cobra and is effectively like convinced that the war has ended, GI Joe won. He's married to Mara. They've got 2 lovely kids. Like, that's the storyline that this seems to be advertising, to me anyway. But I do have a summary if you'd like to hear it.
I'd love it. I always want to hear the summary.
Snake Eyes, Scarlet, and Zap are abducted by Cobra and taken to a nice little town called Springfield, a seemingly normal American town that is in fact a front for a Cobra base of operations. Snake is subjected to Dr. Venom's brainwave scanner, but the Joes escape with the help of a boy who is secretly part of the anti-Cobra resistance.
Incredible. Love that. Lovely synopsis.
Those are the bare bones.
I've got
this issue
so
has
many notes on this issue. It's
a
wild.
massive one. Of the first 10, this
Dude.
has far and away the most lasting consequences or introductions. Dr. Venom, brainwave scanner. Anyway, let's get on with your notes.
Well, no, it's
Let's
just
see how ours line up.
yeah, like the medium of comic books. Like this book is dense. If I told you to fit this story into 25 pages, you wouldn't even know where to start. But there is like an economy of storytelling in this that is absurd. There's just no waste. Like by the time you get to the end, the first few pages feel so long ago. Like it's a real, and this issue is actually wrapped up in a bow as well. It ends. I thought it was like masterful. What's really interesting is though that I spoke to Chief about this issue, and he was like, "Oh, I can just bring this up on your rankings of Talking Joe," and I think we covered like maybe 52 issues, although we were doing them in runs. And he was like, "This was your second to worst issue." So I don't know who that guy was because I read this twice. I thought this issue was amazing. So I'm going to have to re-listen to that Talking Joe. Maybe I was just new to the scene and I don't know. But
isn't it wonderful that older Ben is somehow more rose-tinted than younger Ben? I mean, normally it works the other way.
I know. Strange. Who have we got?
Ben
on
in his late 30s was a glass half empty kind of guy.
Mike Vosberg is the penciler on this issue, and I know that because we're getting... I mean, they were probably doing this in comic books for a long time, but type incorporated into the image is, they started doing that in films with like Panic Room, and then even myself, I really got into it when I was making films, like the motion-locked text. And when I saw that, I thought, geez, this book's really old, but I don't know. I've always quite liked that. And also we get this personnel breakdown. So you really, like, we're coming in and it's like, we got ourselves a good old-fashioned infiltration issue. And we're treated to this information. Okay, it's like, here's the setup. This is the crew we've got. And they keep doing it on the second page with the primary assault team. And we're still dealing with, little green men. So it's actually helpful. Do you know what I mean?
Though even so, the art does not support the membership at times. I mean, Grunt is being called out, but we're clearly seeing a guy with the Flash or Grand Slam pads, which leads me to believe that maybe that was the kind of riot gear or protective gear that any Joe could wear, given the circumstances.
Well, or what's the guy that catches the ball in baseball at the back?
The catcher?
The wicket keeper? I don't know.
There ain't no wicket. He's a catcher. He's got to catch his mitt.
That's
catcher.
it.
Is there a more technical name for him?
I don't know.
I wouldn't know.
Us Brits, we don't know baseball. I mean, I don't know cricket. All I know is soccer.
You know enough to know wicket keeper, mate.
Yeah, wicket. He's a lovely little Ewok.
Wild times on Chasing Joe today.
I mean, look, this is just a thrilling issue. I mean, 1 minute they're on the roof, dude, and then there's this roof shuttle taking off, and Hawk, it's as if that's just, he's seen that, he's like, oh, that's nothing. He's like, oh, those lads have just been dealt a bad hand. That's just a bad hand of cards they've been dealt. It's like, geez, dude, you've just seen a shuttle come out the top of a roof with, some of your team members in it.
Shuttle, very loose terminology there. I mean, this is flying, God knows. It's a square.
What can
flying
we
square.
do? It's
Boosters.
a bad draw of the cards, boys. Damn
Something
straight.
that jumped out of me on this read in particular is we get from Vosberg some nice like geolocating, or like he's got an idea of the physics of this ship because it's got this giant like view screen, and that
Yes.
corresponds with a giant window in the penthouse of the
Yes.
building, and that corresponds with a shot that we see of Baroness sitting at the control panel with this giant window that she's looking out from.
Fantastic.
That's cool, man. He understood the architecture of this building, and I never got it in all my rereads of this issue, and there've been a few until now. So it's the gift that keeps on giving, man.
Yeah. And I like, there's something about the play-based simple narrative of just trying to find each other's base, you know? They want to know where the pit is, and the Joes stumble across Springfield. It's just very simple, you know? All Cobra wants to do, they just want to find that damn GI Joe base. And as a child thumbing through this, I mean, that's probably how you were playing with the figs as well. You know, this is only issue 10, but Harmer is kind of, he's aware that like digging into his most mysterious character, Snake Eyes, starting to giving him like depth and layers. Like only issue 10, and he's clearly aware that okay, this guy, people like this
the breakout.
guy. Yeah, we should delve in, and you're just getting snippets here, aren't you, of Snake Eyes' wild past.
It was possibly Harmer's grand design, but he's a people pleaser at heart. In all the dealings I've had with him, all the kind of intel I've garnered on the man, and the letters column, if you look at books from this era, everyone's asking, we want to know more about Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
Something about the guy dressed in black who doesn't say anything.
Yes, they're not saying anything.
Invites, yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
You just want to know more. Yeah. Interesting.
It was baked in from day one, man.
Do you like this as a Cobra origin? Like, I feel like he doesn't have to do it, but it's kind of honorable that he doesn't want them to be faceless. Like, he's putting in a lot of work here with Springfield and this kind of whole thing. It feels like at issue 10, I'm pleasantly surprised that, he's like, okay, they're not just a faceless kind of enemy. There's a lot more to Cobra than just, oh, these are the bad guys for the Joes.
But you start getting into hot water that way, don't you? Because it starts to ask the questions, okay, all these goons then have families. Do the families live in Springfield? Do those families interact with the rest of, like, American society?
Oh, you think
how the hell is that not a massive security risk?
You think he put a ceiling on himself too early with this?
I just think, like, by keeping Cobra this very mysterious terrorist organization that can seemingly strike anywhere in the globe within... like by couching it in Springfield, you're now shackling yourself to the realities of like Cobra having a headquarters in domestic United States, and that always that tripped me out. I was like, how are they getting away with this?
Well,
how can they have
seen the images, S-Jubs? I
know
the chemicals are in the pizza planet or whatever.
Tanks parked back there in the basements.
They've got two tanks.
Great way towards explaining away how Cobra can exist in domestic US, like hide in plain sight.
Yeah,
but it's always a stretch. It was a stretch for me then, and it's a stretch for me now.
Look, at least,
but it's beautifully handled.
At least they have I believe, it's an arcade. They call it Video World. At least Springfield's got a rocking and thriving arcade scene. Look at that image. Oh,
well,
boy, do I miss a local arcade. I really do.
Wasn't this typical of 1983? Like, this is where kids went.
Yeah, and, arcades have made somewhat of a comeback, but they're all coming from a nostalgic point of view. Like me and Chief, we go to an arcade. It's like free play. You know, you give them 20 quid and you can go on everything. But obviously the context is different. Having these spots as actual hangout spots, so cool.
Mm.
I mean, I never went to an arcade with that big central laser gun in the middle.
With
Normally,
a practical
do you know what?
real
do
laser.
you know what that would have been? That would have been the afterburner. You know,
I was gonna say afterburner, like that could actually move.
Yeah, and it had like
Bloody
rope. It had some
right.
rope around it because you couldn't get too close.
Oh man! Well, no, not in my arcade. You could get taken out by that thing. Such were the safety concerns of the South African arcades.
This issue manages to get so much done in so few pages from where it starts.
And is it taken as read that the kid who helps Scarlet and Zap is none other than Billy, who winds up being revealed to be Cobra Commander's son? Is that evident to you at this point?
No.
Or is that mysterious? Okay.
No.
Well, it might not be true. I mean, is it definitively confirmed?
I don't know.
Mm.
Do they ever?
Not within this issue, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Zap, I mean, is this Zap's last issue? When I hear Zap, it just makes me think of a monthly Commodore 64 magazine that me and my brother used to get. Zap 64, it was called.
Deep cut.
Yeah.
Was this Zap's last issue? Probably not. But he gets far less of a slice of the pie.
Not many of them make it. Not many of them make it out, do they? Of the first 20.
Nah. The breakouts are Snake Eyes, Scarlet, Stalker, Hawk, obviously.
And also the fact that the ending of this issue as well, it actually, it is a relatively self-contained issue. Like, for sure, big reveals and lots going on. But, I was like, what is going on? Scarlet's like parachuting down and she's thump. And I was like, oh my goodness, the Hulk's rocked up. This really is a Marvel book. And I like that. I like that ending. See the Hulk, grand opening. So
the Hulk is a comic book character in the reality of GI Joe.
Yes.
Interesting. So that says that Marvel Comics then exist. But obviously GI Joe wouldn't be a publication of theirs. It's an interesting Elseworlds setup. But we are avoiding the elephant in the room, that being this issue's major contribution to ongoing GI Joe plots, and that is the brainwave scanner.
Oh yeah.
Well, is that a oh yeah as in like that's a big one, or is that oh yeah as in like I quite like it in this dish?
I think it's going to be a lot easier to handle doing this run how we're doing with it, because it But I don't know. It's like I liked that in this issue of just Dr. Venom's just constant kind of trying to dig out where this damn GI Joe base was, and by proxy of doing that, just all of these what he thinks are random images, but is actually, Snake Eyes' pain. And I don't know if Harmon knew how he was going to piece all of this together, but I guess when he was just writing this issue, he could just put anything in there, and he could be like, well, we could come back to that later. There's a helicopter crash there. Interesting.
Very interesting. And it occurs to me like you're delving into your most interesting character, answering some questions that have been begged of you. And the brainwave scanner acts as the perfect MacGuffin to pull that kind of information out of a character who can't be interrogated conventionally.
All you're seeing is
how are you going to interrogate a guy who can't speak? And how are you going to handle an interrogation scene in a book that purports to be in line with the comics code? This is like this kind of non-violent way of really probing into his mind and seeing his thoughts. And I must say, like, the genius of it was how simply it unpacks its like more technical aspects. Basically, the brainwave scanner flashes random images in front of the subject and builds a vocabulary of what their brainwaves do when presented with these images. And then when it kind of reverses that process, it can effectively read their minds. Because, okay, you're making this kind of brainwave pattern. It must mean that you're looking at an apple in your mind, etc.
You must have to show them a lot of images to get the inverse of that, though.
Yeah, look, I think scientifically that doesn't track, because bombarding a human being with that many images would traumatize you. So you wouldn't get anything, you wouldn't be able to get any kind of discernible, decipherable intelligence back. It'd just be this like scrambled brain wave that is useless for, useful for nothing.
Look at this family killed in a flaming car wreck. He's been to Nam. He's met someone at a prom. You
Dr.
finished
Venom
that
has a great turn of phrase.
Yet?
I love how Dr. Venom is so out of touch with like being a human being that he calls a prom some sort of adolescent courtship ritual.
Yeah, yeah. And meanwhile, the roof team, they're all drugged up, aren't they? And Scarlet she's like, bats, no, gargoyles. She's so specific. Yeah. Oh, it's just a lot packed into this.
And what is it that Billy is afraid of? Clowns.
Oh.
Clowns and cobras.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. So you sound like you read this issue for pleasure quite a lot.
So that first trade paperback from Marvel, the first time I ever got to grips with issues 1 to 10 from GI Joe, rocketed it in popularity to the top of the stack. So I reread that trade paperback once I got my hands on, because I'd never read any of these stories bar 9. I had a Tales of GI Joe, which was a reprint of issue 9 from back in the day, from one of my father and my classic trips to the corner cafe for a Coke, a packet of chips, maybe a bit of coin op, Street Fighter 2 style, and then a comic.
Times.
Heady days. But apart from issue 9, I had no contact with any of these books. So there's just the tightness of issue 1 to 10. Or maybe it wasn't the tightness, that's the wrong word. Like maybe it's the fact that Larry was throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall. Like you cited the fact that this had a personnel breakdown in the beginning, like just situating you, like who's on the roof, who's in the sewers, who's in the van. Like concepts like that get dropped pretty quickly in favor of more like standard storytelling, week to week or month to month. These issues were exciting because each one seemed so different from the last. And issue 10 is no different from that trend in that it is just this massive dump of like intrigue and plot. And you said it, man, ties itself up in a bow very neatly by the end.
And I mean, you are very well aware you're reading an early 80s comic book with this beautifully drawn shot of Snake Eyes running up that stairwell. There's about 3 colors. You got just jet black, the shadow of him going up there. It's just so simple and just brilliant. Oh my days.
Would that be BenFlyingRetro's favorite panel?
I think it would be. That's comic. That's why we like comic books. It's just, he's running up there at pace. I mean, I make these. It's interesting. I don't know if we've done this yet, but me and Chief used to talk about this a lot. You read a comic book one way, someone else might read it a completely different way. Do you fill in the movements, the blanks almost, and make it cinematic? I tend to analyze each panel almost sort of old school, like it's a painting, like it's its individual thing telling its own story. Or, I don't know, some people might actually kind of be more kinetic and they're like actually, you're looking at the page and you're kind of acting it out in your head? Or are you more word-based? Are you into
I
the
must say it's
speech
about the
bubbles?
word.
Is
The
it?
script. The script has my greatest share of attention.
Interesting, because
Once
everyone is
I'm done
different.
reading the bubbles, I give the art
Another
a pass.
pass. Yes.
Yeah. No, I read first,
Yeah.
and then I take in the you're always going to see in your periphery what the action of the panel is, but the words occupy my initial attentions, and then I
Now,
look down.
you're a digital guy quite a lot of the time, yeah, with these.
Sadly.
Okay, so that's interesting because I read quite a few Marvel books on the iPad, and so within the app, you've got different ways of doing it. You can have it so when you turn the page, you can either see the full page first, and
Or
then you
guided
can,
view.
and then you can go in to guided view, and then at the end, you can pull out and just sort of sit with the page again. Or you can actually just do the whole thing guided view. And that's an interesting experience, but then you're never taking in any kind of aesthetic of how they've built the page. If you
I'm
just
sure this isn't a hot take, but I fucking hate that. So bad.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Well, it's almost animated. So that is a different medium again, because not only they could crop in to one panel, but they could move around the panel. So there's not even a time where you take in the whole panel as one thing. I don't know.
So there is, and I will include a link in the description below if I remember, a lovely, almost animated retelling of issue 34. They've taken the art panels,
Okay.
set it to voiceover and sound effects, and added some motion.
Oh, that sounds
So
like
it's-
something I'd be interested in.
I'll shoot you the link offline, Ben.
I've had a go at that myself, where you
Isolate
adding,
elements and
yes,
push them around.
Exactly. Like in After Effects, you essentially draw over the subject as a stick figure, and then you can manipulate those kind of sticks. But you don't want to. You're just giving the hint of movement. You're not animating, because obviously you still want to just appreciate the image. It's quite fun, quite time consuming. But where I struggle with what I'd like to do from a creative point of view is you want to pull things out and enlarge and move things, but you don't have the original plates. Like, so if I took Scarlet and Snake Eyes off of this, there's just going to be a hole behind them. Whereas if you have,
and we're not talking about plates anyways. This is
it's been drawn. So
yeah, an artist, his pencil, and a piece of paper.
We ain't talking about plates. We're spinning plates, though. But I mean, yeah, we're both pretty jazzed on this issue, I'd say.
Yeah.
I mean, this is old school era. I mean, issue 10 hasn't even done a year yet, but already, like, he's really putting in the frameworks of something so much bigger than probably he ever thought he'd be involved in. You know, when he was just doing issue 1.
I'm sure by issue 10 he thought this book's on borrowed time. The average life cycle of any toy line was 2 years at the max. If you made it to year 3, you were somewhat of an anomaly.
Do you feel they're not ramming toys down your throat in this book?
Oh no!
I mean,
yeah,
they're ramming. Well, the figs, obviously.
No vehicles in this book. Yeah, nothing you can buy. Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean.
This wasn't a toy. So this, I think Hasbro mandated a toy book every so often because they wanted to push the comic book in a animated commercial. That's why you got issue number 11 being such a big blowout of like the Battle Bear, the Gliders, Doc, Gung Ho.
Is that Pipeline?
Pipeline Ploy, your favorite.
Oh, yeah. Because at the end, you get the Pipeline Ploy, yeah.
And that's the next issue. Whereas this one, Larry's left to his own devices, feature as many or as little of the toys as you want and propel the plot. Boy, did he. Took that ball and ran with it.
When did he drop the all hail mighty Cobra stuff?
I want to say it probably persisted into the late 80s.
Really?
I don't think it ever got dropped. I mean, maybe the salute became less apparent.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like Cobra became less fanatical as well. You started seeing a more human side of Cobra, and when that happened, when that facade was dropped, so did the kind of the rats will go down with the ship, or the cobras will go down the ship. The baby will be thrown out with the bathwater. Basically, the fact that Cobra troopers were penned as suicidal maniacs in the early days, and then became very like greedy, in it for their own aims, like very human. Like they didn't care about the cause; they just wanted to save their own bacon.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to mention something that I did with this issue during a spate of like mandated play. I forced myself every night after putting the kid down to play with my action figures for at least 30 minutes, and I then podcasted on the subject. This sounds like something that your wife would experiment upon.
Yeah.
But I had a Zap that I recently got. Not an easy figure to get. He's particularly fragile. But I just bought a Zap, and so I thought to myself, got a classic Zap, classic Snake Eyes, and a classic Scarlet here with me in Australia. Let me do issue 10. I'm going to play out the events of this issue with my action figures.
Yes.
What fun.
Amazing.
I mean, I was doing it by memory, so like
That's
just
even
hitting the
better.
beats. But yeah, I didn't sit with the issue and kind of do it very plodding. It was taking place on tables and between sofas, like the streets of Springfield was the living room.
Question, did you have a Hulk for the end?
I did not. No. And also I had to get a fill-in for Dr. Venom. He was not looking like Dr. Venom. They haven't done an O-ring Dr. Venom. So I can't remember what I used. Maybe a mind bender. No, a mind bender would have thrown the whole thing out, I think.
I tell you, man,
he's too signature.
The red of the Atari Neon is just catching. Look, I can't shake how good this cover is.
It's funny. People are kind of mixed on this cover.
Yeah, I know, but you got to sit with it. Just stare at it and analyze it for 5 minutes.
I think it helps by just letting the metatextualness of it sink in.
Yes, that's like what Scarlet you have to do.
Absolutely a fish out of water because she's totally mugging for the camera.
Yeah, but I'm breaking the fourth wall. But I need that because if she was if her eye line was down the path, I just don't know. There's something strange about that expression, S-Jubs.
Yes, it's meant to put you on edge. It's meant to break the book, break the cover.
It is. It's like
things not well in this nice little town.
No. Well, S-Jubs, I think unless you've got anything else you'd like to say about issue 10.
As always, I could stay on this line for 3 hours, but
what is this?
Let's let the listeners go.
I've got these video games are so exciting. Amazing new life forms are taking over VCS network. God, what an explosion it really was at this time.
That's an Atari, and it looks like a football game.
And then on the back, I've got coming soon Reactor.
Also for Atari?
It's one home video game you can really get into. Yeah, it was just such an
pre-Nintendo Entertainment System days. Like, the ads had a different style. Big time.
Yeah. What's this? Buy this book or I'll shoot this coyote. On sale now. I mean, okay. Let's get out there and buy it, S-Jubs.
The hell? It's called Coyote. That book did not live long.
Yeah. I think I was like, is that timber? Too soon.
Whatever it was not a winning formula.
Are you thinking this isn't newsstand? But when you say newsstand, are you saying that you could just pick up the New York Times and then next to it was a rack of comics? Yeah, that's what that's what you assume. How cool is that? I wish that. Yeah, so you're just there and you've got all these Marvel comics and stuff like X-Men, Fantastic Four, and then you've got, I don't know, the New York post
Talk to
or
me,
whatever.
Ben. Was there no other way for you to physically obtain comic books than at a comic book store
No, so
as a
you could
child?
get Action Force and stuff like that, because that was a UK book. You could get that in like John Menzies or W.H. Smith's, I guess.
Right.
But
But not just anywhere newspapers were sold.
don't know. Not sure. I mean,
Okay.
American comics was obviously, you had to go to a comic shop.
Here's an international example. So the cafe, one of the cafes that I used to go to get comics,
Yeah.
was then bought out by Spar. So,
Oh, yeah.
like, would a Euro Spar, for instance, have a spinner rack in it?
I'm just trying to think if I ever even bought. I think I must have bought an Action Force comic from a UK shop. Yeah, they would have been everywhere because it was being published in the UK. So
But G.I. Joe, not so much.
there's just
because
something about
American book.
this, 1982 being, I don't know, just anywhere in like Manhattan, just picking up a Joe book off the newsstand. Now
cool.
maybe I can see why people like newsstand edition, because of what it means and where it was. So this basically means, this Spidey symbol essentially means that it was sent to a comic shop, yeah, for them to shift. And the newsstand is the barcode, because they actually need the barcode to sell it. This was 25p, 60 cents. Oh, love it.
Well, it'll make you weep when we get onto some of the books that I recently acquired and what I paid for them.
I've recently acquired...
You've got me buying floppies, boy!
Yes! I've recently acquired some big ones too. Some real big ones, perhaps the biggest. I don't want to give too much away, but some big purchases have been made. I've also been hoovering up quite a lot on Whatnot. It's a new platform. There's people
and you've
selling...
got an inside man in
There's people
Chief?
selling... No, not from Chief, no. But there's people selling Joe books on there. So I'm very ahead of myself. I'm insulated from a week-to-week view. I am fine. But I am doing them, sort of in order.
How far away are we? I mean, like, how many do you have in hand then? Because what an exercise
in
to
hand,
kind of be 10 books ahead, 20 books ahead. You're like, shit, I want to get to this stuff that I've just received. But damn it, Chasing Joe has me reading the books I got 3 months ago.
Chasing Joe is definitely the right title. There's definitely I'm a little bit addicted to The Hunt. And I can already tell that, when I start getting down to the last few, I'll be thrilled, but also a little bit sad that the chase is over. Maybe then I morph into one of these crazy people that wants direct market and newsstand edition. I don't know. No, that won't be me. But I don't know. It's going to be sad. It was sad when I finished the Nightwing. There's just something nice about doing these little side quests in your life. And boy, did I make the right decision with doing this. I can't believe that I was even entertaining the fact of, like, I don't know, getting a compendium or something like that. There's only one way to do it, people. But it ain't cheap. It ain't cheap.
Yeah, man.
Now, I do want to talk about the toys a little bit, but unfortunately, there was no figs in this issue that I could have to hand. Well, I've got a Cobra Trooper,
on the
but
night...
he doesn't look like that.
Knackered. Or no, do you have an Action Force Cobra Goon? Do you have a what is it? SAS? What was his name? The guy who came with the SAS Wolverine.
Oh no, I don't. No,
Hunter.
No.
Hunter is his name. So that's a recolor of the Cobra officer.
How many? How many variations?
He's an SAS guy.
How many variations of the Cobra Trooper are there? You got the red one, then there's the white, no, silvery. What's that one? The officer.
So in the single carded, you'd have the trooper would have the red Cobra symbol.
Yeah.
The officer would have the silver Cobra symbol.
Yeah, and then what about the one in grey?
Cobra trooper out again with the Viper glider, and that one has a silver symbol on his chest, and that figure commands some pretty hefty prices because the combination of the silver paint being very easily rubbed off, and the fact that like if you use these guys as intended on a glider, that part of the chest would be making some pretty rough landings.
And then what about the pastel grey dude?
Oh, that would be a Stinger driver.
Yeah, Stinger driver for sure. My friend had him.
Attack all-wheel drive.
I just always thought he looked so cool and would actually like to troop build him. You know? Have you got a few of him?
I do have a few of him.
Yeah.
I bought a lot in
I just think
Johannesburg.
they'd look cool grouped together, those guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
they
nice
they deserve to be doing more than just driving a Stinger.
Yeah. But if you've got all of those different variations that you were just talking about in one setup or photo, that's a super cool aesthetic, I think. You know, just
classic troopers.
Yeah, just the subtle differences. And
would you accept the returns to that mold that came out in like the 2000s or even last year?
No, I just don't have.
They don't feel right.
No. I'm strict. I am BenFlyingRetro. I am not BenFlying 2020.
Well, I've become a purist of late because up until very recently, I had a Black Major Cobra Trooper with a red balaclava. It's cool. It's comic book accurate because, as you would know, the classics all had black balaclavas. But I've taken him off my Terradrome because only Hasbro originals are riding the Terradrome these days.
For sure.
I know, as it should be, but at the same time, like I've closed the door on like all of the recent stuff. And I don't know if I have like purified myself into oblivion. I'm gonna wither up and die, Ben. All I ever collect are the actual like originals.
Is it just me?
I'm not keeping up with trends, man. I'm not keeping up with what Hasbro's putting out, what Super 7's putting out, what Classified is putting out.
Well, I say you don't need to. You run a sort of YouTube show about this stuff, so maybe you do. But I was going to say you don't need to keep up with the Joneses at all. You got to do what's right for you. I was back to the Cobra Trooper. I was going to say that I feel like to find a mint Cobra Trooper, I think would be hard because all of mine are absolutely battered. They are the cannon fodder. They are getting tossed around and blown up and shot at and japes and scrapes. So mine were all very loosey-goosey. The paint apps were all over the place. And I imagine finding one of those in mint would be actually quite difficult. What's the condition of yours like? I guess you've got a huge scale of battered.
No, I only have 2 original Cobra Troopers, maybe 3.
Yeah.
Maybe 3. Okay, 3. One is played with, one is good condition, and one I had the delight of pulling off the card myself.
Oh,
on my 34th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, local South African seller. The card had kind of been lifted, so it had torn slightly. The figure had never been taken out. And I got my finger in and I popped that bubble right off and snuck my figure out.
Wow.
He'd never been touched by human hands outside of the factory.
That's so cool. So you actually just lifted the bubble, took him out, so you've still got...
I could slide him back in through the hole, but...
Yeah. But, I was looking at a carded Snake Eyes version 4 on eBay. I feel like you do have to be careful. And I sort of I pushed in on the images and I was like, ooh, I could see almost, like tears on the bottom. And I thought, I feel like this isn't mint on card. I feel like this Snake Eyes has actually come out of there and has been re-put in. Nothing was being said like that on the description, and I was like, "Ooh, that would probably break my heart if I bought that and it turned up and it's like, But yeah, I think with purchases like that, high risk on eBay. I'd much rather have it in hand and have a look. But I am
Roll out,
building
roll call,
up
man.
to...
Roll out, roll call.
Yeah, for sure. I want a carded figure. I really do. I'm kind of like, I'm not... I just need one. I'm kind of more into like example pieces. Like I've got a couple of CG slabs. I don't need to collect slabbed comic books, although I think I probably do need that in a 9.8. But yeah, I just feel like in this room I'd like to have a mint on card Joe figure. You can't really be too picky or choosy really with what you want, I suppose. Because there literally can't be that many out there.
Targets of opportunity, Ben. If you've been in the game long enough, they do present themselves every once in every while.
Yeah, there's no rush.
Even down here in Wagga Wagga land.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem quite like as simple as, later figs, easier to find mint on card, obviously.
That paintballer Snake Eyes is going to get more popular, though.
Yeah,
Doing a classified of him.
Are they?
Oh,
have they done like
on that 90s nostalgia?
Have they done
millennials have money to spend now
of that yet? Have they done like solicitations of that figure yet?
They've done the name-only reveal of that, which is basically their way of saying, check here next year and it will be in your hands.
Can you imagine if they scaled him up proportionately, how big the grappling hook would be?
Oh, the grapple. Now, this is the thing,
this
man.
massive thing on his back. Like, wow.
So, I mean, maybe I'm in the minority or maybe it's a more even split, but like... I'd love Classified to lean into like doing the 90s stuff in a 90s style.
Yeah.
Because they are very set on taking these signature looks and Classified styling them.
Yes.
Like making them more believable, perhaps, more grounded, more textured, more like less superheroic, less neon. But
yeah,
they've got to lean in on the neon with that Snake Eyes. You can't avoid it, surely.
Yeah. There's a. I think when they push it too far, there's that all of a sudden I shut off and I get a disconnect. I think a good example of how I feel about Classified would be the Firefly figure.
They've done two, at least.
They've done two. So what have they've done the original and what?
They've done the grey in a sort of Classified style. He looks like he looks like he's actually a EOD, like bomb diffusing type with, Hurt Locker style.
Yes.
Big collar. So that's the first one that they did. Then they did a more lean, mean, back to basics, classic version. Firefly.
There was just one.
So they've done it.
I just looked at him and I was like, yeah, that's not a Cobra figure anymore. I was like, that's something else. I just think there's a simplicity to the original line that I never needed or wanted to be taken more real world. And as soon as it goes that far, I just feel there's that Firefly figure just looked like a kind of army generic kind of thing. And I was like, I'm missing the G.I. Joe-ness of all of this. And the thing is, it's a waste of my breath. I don't need
crowd
exactly.
Now,
I don't want to. I probably don't need to go down this well because it's like I'm a nostalgic retro guy. They're not for me, and that is totally fine. Chief told me that there's like 150 now. There's over 150 Classified figs. That blows my mind because I remember the first wave coming out, and it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. No. And I mean, look, people have been voting with their wallets because you don't make 150 figs if no one's buying them.
Is it the hottest thing in 6-inch? I guess. I don't know. Star Wars seems to be going in circles, and Marvel.
Yeah. So during COVID,
with the decline of the MCU, surely they're moving fewer figures. Like the hot ticket is the X-Men line, surely. On the back of X-Men 97. Beyond that, like, do they have figures attached to all the TV shows? WandaVision? Like, I'm like, oof. Who wants those?
Me and Chief got into figs in a big way during COVID, and we went down the Star Wars Black Series line.
Yes.
And we went down that well big, and I mean, I bought loads of the things. just because of, I don't know, nostalgia, and I was like, these are fun. And it soon dawned on me that I'm not interested in having a Han Solo that's dressed in a different sort of way to the version in the film. So once you've released, New Hope Han, Hoth Han, Bespin Han, Endor Han, that's done. Whereas with with GI Joe, they must have just been like, guys, we have so many figures we can do. This is just going to take care of itself for years. Where when we were collecting Black Series, they were literally running out of stuff to do. They just did it all very quickly. Whereas with GI Joe, I mean, yeah, wow. Have they done an airtight yet? No. That's what I mean. We could just sit here and name figures that they haven't done yet, even though. And I don't think
Airtight's even gotten a reveal, like a name-only reveal. He's not even a kind of a pipeline figure.
I saw they did Barbecue.
He looks buff.
There seems to be almost just no rhyme or reason to, as they were coming out, I was like, okay, Barbecue's out in Classified. Great. Yeah, I think Chief actually bought him, and he was very much a kind of just almost like a like-for-like kind of version. But I've never...
2 axes instead of 1.
Oh, wow.
And some storage.
Barbecue's very much a firefighter. This is a bit like when we were talking about Toxo Viper. Like, he's not starting the fires, he's putting out the fires. How do you play with your Barbecue? Does he go on missions with the rest of your Joes, or do you just call him when there's a fire?
Well, he's got that great line, I think, in his debut issue. It's like, what does a combat unit need with a firefighter? Well, everybody asks that until they're on fire.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Then you'll see what I can do. But yes, it's baffling. And what do you do with him most of the time? Do you give him a standby gun? Do you just put him in your transportable tactical battle platform and forget about him?
Is he happy with having a gun? Is that his,
He's not a pacifist. He's a fire.
What's his secondary? What's his file card? What's his secondary?
I'd say infantry. Just off the top of my head, I'll look it up for you.
Yeah. Whew, we are spinning our wheels at the end of this episode.
The listeners were in for a treat.
Yeah, we've gone, Barbecue. Who knew? I mean, I mentioned Barbecue after I mentioned Airtight because for some reason I feel like you could have put those guys in a twin pack. They just, I don't know, they bounce off each other in my eyes.
Yeah, the nerds of 1985.
Nerd crew.
But yes, it's confirmed. My instincts serve me well. First, his primary military specialty is firefighter or fireman, they say, and his
Your insides serve you well. They do you credit.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. His secondary military specialty is infantry. So the guy's at home carrying a rifle.
Well, I'm at home.
Have some weird other thing like finance clerk or something.
Carrying Kirby.
Hello, Kirby.
Yeah, I've got him tattooed on me somewhere.
Can confirm there are blotches of ink on Ben's forearm.
Oh, Emma's not happy with the bed sheets. There's ink everywhere. It's ridiculous.
And plasma.
Plasma, ink. Oh dear. Now look, I must get out of here. I really must. But this has been a treat. We've been chatting for so long.
Ride.
I've forgotten what issue we were talking about. It was issue 10. Okay, it was issue 10. That was episode 9. My name's Ben, or is BenFlyingRetro. You can follow me on Instagram. You can catch my podcast, People Who Play, over on Substack. You can stay right here to enjoy the flagship S-Jubs.
GI Joburg!
Yeah, baby! We will see you next week for a special episode. It's episode 10, and we're doing a special book! Woohoo! Yo!
So we didn't do issue 10 on episode 10.
No!
It better be special.
Joe!
Yo, no. Jojo. Bye.